Okay, so I am going to talk you through a paper 1 so that you can see how you should be working the exam. Time pressure is quite important, so it's really good to go in there knowing exactly what you need to do for each of the sections. I'm going to skip over the multiple choice because hopefully you've had lots of practice doing that by now. And I'm just going to move on to the first context question, which is here. Okay, so you've got 3 of these questions to do on the paper. So the first one in this instance is about the Ford Motor Company. And it's really important that as you're reading through, you're highlighting your key points, because this will make it much easier when you're trying to get your context marks to make sure that you've put in some of the key features. So the Ford Motor Company is a global manufacturer, so quite possibly we want to maybe use global manufacturer. Range of vehicles, cars, trucks, vans and buses, so they'd be good words to use as well. Ford Motors has been one of the best-selling car brands for over 30 years. Range of models, and we've got some model names here as well. Company's large range of products includes models that differ in size to meet the individual needs of different market segments. So we've got eco-friendly small cars, family cars, sports cars, 7-seater. Ford Motors carries out a lot of market research when developing new car design and uses both primary and secondary research. This ensures that new car designs and models meet the needs of potential customers. Each model sales levels are regularly monitored against the product life cycle. Okay, so questions about market segmentation seem to come around quite a lot. So it's probably worth making sure that you are familiar with these models. Sorry, I'm just trying to change my pen. Don't want to do that. I want to click over here. Let me try doing it with this. Okay, so I'm about to apply pen. So 2 secondary market research sources. So with the exam advanced information for this year, don't need to worry too much about secondary market researches sources, but we could put those in. So what they're looking for is things that already exist. So we could go for previous sales data. And we could also go for government statistics. And we could put on families, because one of the things that they're making cars for is families. So they might want to know sort of, is the number of children increased? So previous sales data from earlier models. We've got to get our context in here as well. So by putting earlier models, we're talking about cars, we're talking about families. So the purpose of marketing within Ford Motors is going to be important. It's only worth 2 marks, but we have to make sure that we have got our context marks in here as well. So we need to be talking quite specifically about that. So we want to say something along the lines of, it's going to help them better spend their sorry, this one is explain the purpose of marketing. So the explain the purpose of marketing is always to try and inform your customers about what's going on. So the purpose of marketing within Ford Motors is to inform customers about the features of new cars as they are launched. Okay, so I've explained it. So informing customers, that will get me my 1 mark. And then because I've said features of new cars, that will get me my 2nd mark for the context. So moving on, explain one way that preparing a business plan may be useful to Ford Motors. So most of the time a business plan is useful. One of the key things you can remember that you can use for almost any situation is it will help them secure finance. So if they need to go to the bank will want to have a look to see at their business plan. This is a large business. They may want to invest in new machinery for different models of cars. And so by having a business plan, that will help them secure finance. So if Ford needs to get a bank loan when investing in new car developments, this will make gaining the finance more likely. So again, I'm going to get a mark for saying that my business plan, if I need to get a bank loan, so there's my first mark, and my second mark is going to come from the new car developments, because it doesn't mention. Another key thing to remember is you can't repeat the words that you've got in the question. So if it said cars in the question, you wouldn't get any context marks or application marks there. So again, just to help you understand how they're awarded, so I get an understanding mark there and an application mark there. So explain how Ford Motors could use market segmentation when deciding where to place an advert for its new car model. So this is an example. So we can't just say new car models in our answer and expect to get application marks. We've got to go beyond that. So if we just go back up, and this is why it's useful to underline or highlight, we can see that we've got the models here. So they've told us about different models, and they've also told us about their different car market segments. So we can see that some of them are for eco-friendly people, some of them for families, some of them for sports fanatics, and some of them for larger families with 7-seaters. So by using market segmentation, they can decide where to put that advert that's going to hit, their maximum sort of efficiency. So they want to be making sure, for example, if they're advertising their family car, that potentially it's somewhere where there are lots of families. So Families Magazine, for example, could be a good place for them to put their adverts for their new 7-seaters or the Ford Galaxy. So we want to say something along those lines. Again, it's only 2 marks, so we need an understanding, and we also need something from the context. So explain how Ford Motors could use market segmentation when deciding where to place an ad for its cars. So market segmentation allows Ford to advertise more efficiently by placing adverts where the target market will see them. So that's quite a long-winded way. For my first mark, target market will see them. And then we've got to get our context in, e.g. advertising the family cars. I'm going to go for during family TV programs. Okay, so I've got family cars, which is going to get something because I've not just said new car models, so family cars. I've said where they could place it, and I've said it's going to, be seen by their target market. One disadvantage to Ford Motors of manufacturing is selling such a large range of products. So we need to go back up here to see what they're saying. So we know that they're making cars, vans, trucks, and buses. And we also know that they're operating in lots of different segments. So we want to get something about that in. And now it's a 3 marker. So I'm looking to get an understanding mark, an application mark, and an analysis mark. So I have to explain really clearly what the disadvantage is going to be. So I'm going to start off with a because. I'm going to use my BLT strategy, because leads to therefore. Because Ford Motors makes a wide range of vans, trucks, and cars, it may experience issues with ensuring car parts arrive on time from the many different suppliers that would need to be involved for so many vehicles. Possibly leading to delays in production. It's a bit of a weird one actually, this, because production should really be on paper too. So I'm going to get my understanding mark by saying, we've got lots of different suppliers, and that obviously takes some coordination. My application is going to come from here, and it doesn't matter what order these marks are awarded with. And then I've clearly put an impact. So that's what you're looking for, an impact, to get your analysis mark. So this question, not a very nice question, actually, I have to say. Many businesses, such as Ford Motors, use the product lifecycle. We know that the product lifecycle is on the advanced information, so it's worth making sure that you understand that. That's the graph that looks a bit like this, where we have slow period of introduction, then growth, then we'll plateau out for some period, and then we'll start to decline. So we've got 4 different sections. Okay, so we've got introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So one advantage to a business of you, so this is just to a business, we don't need to worry about getting our context marks here. In using this to plan the marketing of its product. So one of the things that we know is really good is that if a product goes into decline, we can start to put an extension strategy in to stop that decline. So it clearly indicates when an extension strategy could be used. To reverse sales decline. Okay. One disadvantage to a business using the product cycle to plan the marketing of its products. Like all of these things that are plan or forecast, so just like cash flow forecasting, business plans, they're all plans. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you've planned it, that other things won't change, particularly things beyond our control. So largely the product life cycle ignores external factors. Okay, so if a new competitor comes on the scene, it's not going to pick that up, or trends that haven't been factored in, so it ignores external factors. I'm just going to leave that there because it's only 1 mark. So evaluate whether or not Ford Motors should continue to use the product life cycle when planning the marketing of its products. So any 7-mark question should always follow this structure. So we want to give 1 paragraph, which is a positive, about using continued use, 1 paragraph that's negative, and then we really want to make sure that we focus on that evaluation. There needs to be a clear statement at the end. Okay, so don't worry about stating at the start. You just want to say 1 advantage to using product life cycle. is that it can help us to understand, how much we need to advertise our new models, because they're relatively unknown. We need to make people aware of it, and that's going to help us increase our sales revenue. So we're only going to get 2 marks here. So 2 marks for one for application, 1 for analysis, and the same here. 1 for application, 1 for analysis. Most of our marks are going to come from the evaluation, which is going to be 3 marks. Okay, so one advantage to using the product lifecycle is that at launch, the new models will be unknown. And so advertising spend will need to be high so that customers are aware of it, allowing it to enter the growth stage and increasing revenues. Okay, so I'm going to get my analysis mark there because I've said what's going to happen. I've also talked about the new models being unknown, so I can get my application mark there. Okay, so I've got 2 marks so far. So I also then want to go on to think about some of those other external factors that we've said are ignored. So one drawback is that external factors are ignored. And so we want to think of a competitor to Ford, so that we might say Honda might release a new model at the same time. And this is not easily reflected or considered using the PLC, product lifecycle, meaning advertising spend may not be as effective. Okay, so again, my advertising spend is going to get me my analysis mark, and I've put a new model at the same time as Honda, so that's going to get me my application. So I've got 4 marks. So now I've got to be really clear, and I've got to give my statement. Okay, so I might want to say Ford Motors should continue to use the PLC. So I'm going to get 1 mark just for saying that. Okay, which is why I think it's good to put it at the end, because you're really clearly showing then, because what some students do is say they should, they shouldn't, and then it's really not clear to the examiner which they should be doing. So Ford Motors should continue to use the product lifecycle, as it will allow business to increase its sales of new vehicles during the product launch. Okay, as well as thinking about extension strategies when an older model is coming to the end of its life. Should continue to use the product lifecycle as it allows the business to increase sales. Oh, why that won't work down there. Let's try going down here. Yeah, to increase sales of new models at launch, as well as indicating when an older model, such as the KA, told us about the KA, may need an extension strategy. Now, hopefully that would get me 3 marks, okay? Because I'm going to get 1 for just saying they should continue. Another one says it allows the business to increase sales of new models at launch as well as indicate. So I've given 2 really good contextual, okay, so it needs to be contextual. There's my context there, KA, and I've got new models there. Don't know what the new models are called, so I can't refer to them. But clearly this answer is only about that question. Okay, right, now let's move on to Redrow Homes. Same thing again. So I'm just going to change over to my highlighter and look at this. So this is one that's probably a little bit more obscure. So it's about house builder. Probably many of you know too much about house building. This is the key sort of information we need though. So this can transform your answer. So rather than just saying they employ a lot of people, if you said they employ 2,300 people, you'll get your mark for analysis. Application. We've also got lots of examples here of who they're employing. So carpenters, plumbers, bricklayers, I'm sure we can all relate to what they do. Sales advisors to sell the houses, committed to staff development, got 15% of people on an apprenticeship. It's been named, so it's obviously a good place to work. At any one time, the company employs at least 130 apprentices. We've got a lot of apprentices on the books. They find it's an excellent way to find and develop young, motivated staff. The company offers apprentices a clear career path whereby they gain qualifications alongside work experience. So in case you'd forgotten what an apprenticeship is, it's given you a really nice description there. So how are we now going to approach these questions? So bit of a tricky one here. One method Redrow's head office employees could use to communicate with staff working on one of its building sites. So communication again is on the advanced information. It hasn't been taken out. So we need to be aware. So we could say email. Okay, so we're going to get 1 mark for just recognizing that email is something that a business could use. Now, this is head office employees communicating to people on the building site. So we've just been told about lots of people on the building site. We've got carpenters, plumbers, bricklayers. So we could say here, this would allow, and it's got to be in context because it's in the question, this would allow Redrow Homes to send a message to all the bricklayers about a change to delivery of bricks, which they could pick up when on break. So they can pick it up, they can email a group of people. We've clearly made it relevant. So bricklayers about the delivery of bricks, which they could pick up when they're on a break because email's not going to interrupt them while they're out laying their bricks. Now we've got 2 reasons why employee motivation is important to Redrow Homes. This is where we want to bring in some of these key facts that we've been given. So we know that employee motivation is important because we want to try and minimise staff turnover. Staff turnover costs businesses a lot of money because every time somebody leaves, they've got to advertise that job, they've got to retrain them. And so really we want to maintain as many of our staff as we can because then we're going to have a lower turnover of staff. So we want to say lower turnover of staffing. This is important as 2,300 employees are needed. So, you know, we've spotted that actually we want to keep those people, and here's our context. So if we said lots of employees, you wouldn't get the context mark, but just by putting 2,300 in, you're going to get your context mark. So there's my 1 mark for understanding, and then I'm going to get my 2nd mark for the application. Oh, sorry, it's 2 marks overall. So it's a mark with, sorry, so it needs to be just a reason with context. So that it's not going to get me 2 marks, it's going to be 1 mark. And then we need another one. So generally, if people are more motivated, we can say higher quality, higher quality of bricklaying, higher quality of carpentry. Any of those things would be fine. Less supervision required. Right, business may use financial and non-financial, so you may not know, but non-financial currently been taken off for paper 1 for this year. So we'll talk about it, but don't worry too much if you don't know too much about that at the moment. So financial could be anything. So we'll just go for a bonus. And again, it just says a business, so it doesn't need to have any context. And non-financial, sorry, also here I could have had profit share. I could have had a pay rise, anything that is actually to do with money. So pay rise, company car. Yep. Non-financial is going to be the best one to remember for non-financial is lots of praise. Okay. Could also be things like employee of the month. It's always a good one to remember because you can pretty much put that in for any business. But praise is also a good one, really overlooked. State one reason why business may need to recruit new employees. Well, if we've got 2,300 people, we're going to have quite a lot of, people just leaving. We might potentially have people going on parental leave. Okay, so we can say parental leave. Parental leave. If an existing staff member leaves, existing staff move on. We might have a period of growth, so we might also need more. So really easy 1 marker there. Now, next one. Redrow Homes could use interviews or group activities to help select new apprentices. Analyse how each of these methods could be used. We've got interviews and group activities. So let's just go back up, have a quick squiz at what it told us in the blurb. Oh, too far. Okay, so it doesn't say too much. Obviously, we can see that maybe the apprentices could work in any of these roles within the business. It doesn't tell us where they are. So we're looking at interviews and group activities. And this is a 3 marker. So again, we need to get that mark for understanding. Something you may not be aware of. If you don't get your mark for understanding, you won't be given any other marks. So how could interviews be used to help select new apprentices? So we really need to think about what is different between an interview and a group activity. So obviously the biggest thing is probably that interviews are going to be 1-to-1. And what are they going to allow us to find out? So interviews will allow a 1-to-1 conversation. We can find out perhaps more in-depth things than they've put on their application form if we assume that they've applied for a job. And then we can ask them about, maybe an experience that's relevant to house building. So we've got to get some context in there as well. So interviews allow 1-to-1 conversation to find out more in-depth knowledge about the candidate and Redrow Homes could ask more about experiences relevant to house building allowing the best suited candidates to be selected. So I've said the best suited candidate, so that's going to be my analysis mark about experience relevant to house building. So I'm going to get my application mark there, and more in-depth 1-to-1 conversation is going to get me my understanding mark there. Okay, same now for my group activities. So how's that going to be different? Well, there's lots of people working on this building site, so presumably teamwork's going to be important. Interviews, they're only telling you what they've done, whereas group activities, we can observe it. So that's got to be the biggest advantage here. So we can actually assess their ability. So group activities allow the candidates to be assessed on what they can do and how they interact with others. Okay, so that's my understanding mark. This is important to Redrow Homes as there will be many opportunities or many requirements for team working on a building site to ensure houses are built on time. So I'm going to get my understanding mark for saying that they can be assessed on what they do. I've said why it's important, Redrow Homes, many requirements for teamwork on a building site. So that's my application mark. And then because they're working as a team, that will ensure that houses are going to be built on time. So now I've got to recommend, and this is an important thing as well that's changed, that you'd only know if you look at the mark scheme. So when it's a recommend and you've been given two options, okay, so my two options here are either interviews or group activities. There is no right or wrong answer. But when it's a choice, the best 3 mark answers are going to make sure it's a comparison between the two. So we've got to think about why, and you could argue it either way. I think I'm going to go group activities because I think it's more important that they are demonstrating their skills because there's lots, it needs a lot of collaboration on the building site. And so I think that's, but just go for the one that you feel that you could write the most about, okay, because there is no right answer. But again, it needs to be a clear recommendation. I recommend group activities, okay. This is because Redrow Homes has a reputation for high quality homes or high quality house building, and group activities assess the candidates on the skills demonstrated rather than just being talked about at interview. E.g. bricklaying. So they might say, I'm a brilliant bricklayer, but you're not going to be able to see that in an interview unless you can actually, in a group activity, you will be able to see that. So e.g. I should say bricklaying can actually be seen. So I'm going to get 3 marks for that because I've recommended, so I get 1 mark for my recommendation. I've said it's got a reputation for high quality house building. Group activities assess the candidates on the skills demonstrated rather than just being talked about at interview. So there's my comparison. So I've written the word at interview as well. So that's the thing that you want to do. It's better, X is better than Y, or Y is better than X, okay, can actually be seen. And I'll get 3 marks. So let's move on. Analyse one benefit to Redrow Homes of using apprenticeships as a method of staff development. So the best things about apprentices are that you can train them specifically within the requirements of your particular business. So for Redrow Homes, they might have a particular way of house building, they might have particular internal standards that they want to meet for each house. And so if they're training them up on that, they know that their apprentices will be doing that from day one. So we really want to make that clear. So apprenticeships can be tailored closely to the needs of the business. And so Redrow Homes will train them to build houses to the specification that they require, allowing the quality to remain high. So that would be enough to get us 3 marks, okay? Because we've said closely tailored. So there's our understanding mark. Closely tailored to the needs of the business, there's 1 mark. And so we'll train them to build houses. There's our application to specification that they require, allowing the quality to remain high. Job done. Moving on then. So question 3 is your trickiest question. This is because that there is a 9-mark question at the end, and it also requires you to use numerical data in your answer to get your application mark. So I'll come on to that in a second. But again, let's just go through with our highlighter and pick out the key points. So Beautiful Buds is a company which grows plants that are sold to garden centres. They've got a new MD who's proposed a merger. So merger should be straight away saying, okay, that's external growth with Green Gardens, a chain of garden centres. So here's the difference. We've got a chain of garden centres selling a wide range of plants and other garden products. Green Gardens, so the people they're hoping to buy, is currently one of the country's largest plant and garden retailers. They've got a market share of approximately 12%. So it's going to result in one company owning a chain of garden centres as well as growing the plants that are sold in those outlets. They currently have 124 employees. It's looking to make the business more efficient and planning to change organisational structure by removing 2 layers of management. So we can see that here. Okay. Oh, sorry. So it's not senior managers. It's these 2 here. Okay. They are going. You can see that here. So we've still got directors and senior managers. We've gone from 30 supervisors to 40 supervisors, and the operatives stay the same. Changes planned before the proposed merger. The MD believes that the task carried out by middle managers and team leaders can effectively be completed by employees either above or below them. The estimated redundancy costs are going to be £200,000. So that's all quite important stuff. I'll come back to that in a bit. And then we've got this table as well. So straight away, we can see that there's a few things here. So we are losing 32 managers, okay, and we're adding on 10 supervisors. So our net difference is going to be 22 people lost, okay, whoops, 22 lost, and that's going to have some requirement or some impact looking at these salaries, but we'll come back to that in a second. So 2 benefits to growing externally. Okay, so 1 benefit, and it's got to be to Beautiful Buds. So 1 benefit is much faster growth than trying to sell more plants using internal growth. Okay, so I said it's faster. So the key thing to get down is that it's faster than internal growth, but we can't forget that we've got to get our application in there. So trying to sell more plants using internal growth. And then I've also got to get an impact as well. So allowing us to, allowing, so it's much faster growth and trying to sell more plants using internal growth, allowing increased sales revenue. So that's my impact. Okay, so external, I'm going to get that sales revenue much faster than potentially doing it internally. We also know that Beautiful Buds, buying Green Gardens, has got a great reputation. So is a successful garden centre with 12% market share. So Beautiful Buds may benefit from the enhanced reputation from the merger. Okay, so my understanding is it's going to get a better reputation. I've said where that reputation is coming from, because they're a successful garden centre with 12% market share, and so they're going to benefit from the enhanced reputation from the merger. So identify one way that that Beautiful Buds could have grown organically. I've already said that. So again, it needs to be in context: sell more or varied plants. We could also have had extending the range of garden products. Again, it's got to be something to do with gardens to get our application mark, even just for one mark. Okay. 2 stakeholder groups. Again, stakeholders are on the paper. Quite possible a question like this could come up again, because you can make this relevant to almost any question. So analyze the impact on 2 stakeholder groups of the proposed vertical merger between Beautiful Buds and Green Garden. So the most obvious ones that we could go for here are employees. We could go for customers. We could go for competitors. We could go for the shareholders. Again, you need to think about which one could I write more about. So I think probably the easier ones to write about are the employees and the customers. So let's go customer. Okay, and let's think about what could happen. It's a proposed merger. They're growing and selling their own plants now, and so perhaps the prices might come down. So that could be a positive. So let's say Beautiful Buds and Green Gardens will now be growing their own plants and selling to customers. And so they may be able to reduce their prices due to increased efficiencies, which will make customers more loyal. So if they're getting cheaper prices, then the customers are going to come back. They're going to like that. I can't think of any customers that wouldn't like a lower price. So obviously with the employees, they might be a little bit nervous because there's already been some redundancies before the merger. So they might still have a little bit of anxiety about that, but potentially there could be more career progression, because if we go back and look at the new model, there's now more roles within supervisors. We've got more supervisor roles, and there's less of these middle manager jobs. And so perhaps the opportunity for progression is greater. We could write something about that, but I think I'm going to go about anxieties. So Beautiful Buds was restructured prior to the merger, and we know that because it told us that in the text prior. What's going on with my pen? It's getting messier and messier. Prior to the merger, but the existing staff may still be anxious about further job cuts due to greater efficiencies from the merger, leading to them being less motivated. So I've said what the impact is. Okay, let's just go back. I changed my pen color there, just to go back and see where we're going to get these marks. So we're going to get 1 mark just for identifying the stakeholder. We're going to get our application mark because we've mentioned about being structured prior to the merger. And then we said, that they might then be less motivated. So let's go back up to this one. So again, 1 mark for customer. When I'll be growing their array plants and selling to customers, they may be able to reduce their prices just to increase efficiencies. So prices is going to get my application mark, and then I've just got that one in as well, just to cover my back for my analysis. Sorry, that's my application mark here. Okay, reduce their prices. I might even just be able to stop there, but I think it's quite good to keep going if you're not too time pressured, just to make sure you're nailing those marks. Now, again, we've got a recommend question. Who's going to be most affected by this? Okay, so we've got to decide, is it the employees or is it the customers? So difficult one. Which one can you write more about? Again, no right answer. So, and again, it's a bit difficult with this one. So this one isn't one where is prior to where they've made the changes. To say who's most effective. Can't really make a very easy comparison between employees and customers because they're just too different. So I'm going to say the employees will be most affected with an A, as they risk being financially insecure. Oh, what's going on? Financially insecure if there are further job cuts. Whereas customers will be just getting cheaper plants. So we kind of said actually it is more important that financial insecurity is a little bit more important than getting your plants cheaper. So again, marking for this is going to come from say my employees. Okay, so there's my 1, and then they are risk financially if there's further job cuts, so it's within context, whereas customers will be just getting cheaper plants. So there's my 3rd mark there. Okay, so on to the 9-mark question. So it's probably worth just telling you about my suggested structure for this. So it's exactly the same as a 7, but with a 9, you have 2 extra marks, and that comes from this. So you're looking for where is the key term in this sentence, and the key term here is organizational structure. So you will get 2 marks for explaining what the organisational structure is. If we go back up, what they're hoping, and they haven't told you this, so again, this is why you're going to get the marks, is that you should recognise that this is a tall structure and this is a flat structure. Okay, and we have 2 levels less of management. We call that delayering. So we want to get that in first. So let's do that first, and then we'll come on to how we're going to get the rest of the marks. So Beautiful Buds is moving from a tall structure. Now, even to get my marks here, let's go back up and have a look to see how many layers of management it's got, or how many layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's going from 6 to 4. So Beautiful Buds is moving from a tall structure with 6 layers to a flatter structure with 4 layers. Okay. And we could probably just go back up and get a little bit more info here as well. So what did we say there was? They're getting rid of 32 management positions. So 32 management positions will be lost. So 2 marks there, okay, because I've said what's happening, tall structure to a flat structure, and I've got some key pieces of information in there. I should say 4 layers. I don't understand why the pen is misbehaving. So 2 marks now. So we've got 2. So that is what we call a knowledge and an understanding mark. Now, in our first paragraph, we want this to be a positive one. And again, we're going to get 1 mark for application and 1 mark for analysis. And then we want a negative paragraph. Again, same thing. And then 3 marks for our evaluation. So what's a positive about doing this? So this is where we need to bring in some maths. So by getting rid of those 32, we need to do a little bit of maths. So we had 12 middle managers, so 80,000 times 12. And then middle managers, we had, sorry, team lead. No, it isn't. Yes, it is team leaders that are going, sorry. So team leaders are going 35,000, and we had 20 of those. Okay, so let me just get my calculator and do 12 lots of 80,000. 12 times 80, 1, 2, 3 is 960,000. So 960K for the, I've done that completely wrong. Ignore what I've just said. It's middle managers I need to be doing. So 50,000 times 12. Not those. Senior managers are staying. Senior manager, senior manager, middle managers and team leaders. So 12 of those going and 20. So 12 times 50,000. I'm doing this with a calculator. I should be able to do this in my head, but because I'm doing it on a video, I don't want to rely on it because I'm bound to make a silly mistake. So 600,000. So we're saving 600,000 for the middle managers. And then the team leaders are 35,000. And we're getting rid of 20 of those. So that's 700,000. Just check that's right. So 12 lots of 50,000, 20 lots of 35,000. So that gives us, oops, 1.3 million. But we need to remember that actually restructuring costs are 200,000. So we've got to take off the 200,000 as well, which leaves us with 1.1. But also, we are also going to be employing 10 more supervisors. So how much does it cost us for a supervisor? 300, so 30,000, so that's going to be 300,000 total. So actually our net is going to be 0.8 million. because using that from that. So overall, by the time they've got rid of those, not paying those wages, but they have paid out the restructuring costs and they have paid for the new 10 more supervisors, they should still be 0.8 million better off. So that's some of the information that we need to use. So one advantage is the cost saving, the significant cost saving. So some people might just think, oh, I can write significant cost saving. That's shown I've worked it out, but you're not going to get any marks of that. So it's really important that you're doing these calculations. So they will save what was it? 1.3 million from management salaries. That need to pay redundancy and for 10 extra supervisors, so a net saving of 0.8 million, which will help raise their net profit. So there's my impact. Okay, I've clearly used my application because I've got 1.3 million saved. I've said what the analysis is going to be, because if they reduce their costs, then they're going to increase their profit, and it's going to be net profit because these are salaries, so they come under fixed costs. So that is going to impact net profit. So what is a negative to do with this? This could be that the rest of the workers are a bit demotivated, that they're it's not going to be very positive. You think back to the news about P&O ferries, when they made lots of people redundant, that was picked up by the press, gave them quite a bit negative reputation. But I think we'll go for the demotivated workforce because that's a bit easier to write about. So one drawback is that because there's going to be more work for them to do now. So those 10 people are doing the work of the 22 people that they've got rid of. So they're going to have to work harder. They're not going to be particularly happy about that if they're not being paid any more money as well. Is that 32 management positions have gone, and only 10 more supervisors. And so remaining staff may be demotivated by having to, just move the screen down a bit, by having to do the work of the 22 lost positions. So again, I'm not going to write too much more than that because I've got my application mark and that's coming from the numbers, 32 management positions. Okay, so you've got to get your numbers in there. Okay, and I'm also saying they have to do the work of the lost positions of the, so by having to do the work of the lost, again, let's put it in there, 22 positions. Because 10 have been replaced, 22 haven't. So we've got 22, the work of 22 managers shared between those supervisors. They might be very happy. So now I need to do my evaluation. Okay, and it says, what does the question say? Should they go ahead with the plan? So I'm thinking, well, they probably should. You know, but we need to think about this quite carefully, what we're going to say. We don't just want to repeat what we've said already to get these marks. But again, I'm going to get a mark for saying, I recommend, whoops, I recommend they go ahead. as the savings made will allow them to be more profitable. Which is important for the shareholders as this will be what do I want to say is important for the shareholders. I think they're a PLC. They're a PLC. Yeah. This will be important for the shareholders as, sorry, this will be, there will be higher chance of dividend payments. So I've said why it's important that they make more profit, clearly related it to it. I've realised that they're a private limited company, sorry, public limited company. And I've made that clear. So I'm going to get my 3 marks. So that's what a 9-mark question should look like. That little mini paragraph at the start with whatever the key term is and try and relate it to the scenario, making sure that we've got specific numerical analysis in our paragraphs, just one paragraph with the positive, one paragraph with the negative, and then a really clear evaluation of which one they should go for. Good luck with the exam. I really hope that's been helpful to you. And just take your time. Like I say, make sure you read through. Some things I've noticed with my students is they don't read the scenarios carefully enough, and then they might write something that contradicts it. So it clearly says it's a PLC here. They might then start talking about it being an LTD. I've seen that before with somebody, when it said it's a sole trader and they talk about something else going on. Or, they're operating a particular market and they say, oh, they could enter into this market when it tells you that they're already in it. So don't make any silly mistakes. I know time is going to be a problem, but I think that's why it's important that you do your highlighting and can make sure then that you've included everything. And then just think, particularly for this last question on paper 1, why have they given me this information? What can I do with it? Okay, and even if you're not feeling very confident with your maths, even just like seeing, okay, I can see that actually we've lost 32. That's analysis because you've added those 2 numbers together. You've got 32. There's 32 fewer managers. Okay, there's 22 net positions lost overall because they've added that 10 on. So just by looking carefully at these numbers, you can get your marks for analysis. Okay, that's enough from me. I hope that's been helpful and good luck with your exam.